Well, g'day flatties and globe defenders. It's Critical Think from Down Under. Okay, continuing on in the saga of the fish tank experiments that Ranty started, and now Brandon Toy has entered into the fray, and he's done his fish tank experiment at least in the right manner. And Effie Dogma has already made a video pointing out where Brandon Toy's analysis was really incorrect. And I'm just going to add a little bit to that. You should go and watch Effie Dogma's video, and I'll be repeating a couple of the same points, but I've got a little bit of extra information to add. So this is Brandon Toy's before and after shots before he puts the sugar in the water on the left and afterwards on the right. Now, I'm a bit surprised here. I'm a bit surprised about the cloudiness on the right. Now, when I've done this experiment, there's been no such cloudiness. So unfortunately for Brandon Toy, it's difficult to see exactly what's going into the tank. And of course, he's looked at it with his flat earth eyes, and he's come up with the wrong conclusion. Anyway, in the meantime, Ranty has made another retraction, and apparently the hot sugar syrup does not float to the top.
So it didn't sit on the top, as I first suspected. It actually just mixed all around the whole tank. So again, I was wrong on that assertion too. But let's get to some of the...
So he's chosen to use the word suspected there, but it was much stronger than that at the time. It was more than just a suspicion. He was insisting that he was right and everyone else was wrong.
No. Hold on. Let me... Don't be saying I've got it all wrong. No, actually, this is devastating for you when it all gets explained. Yes, absolutely.
So that's slightly stronger than suspected. He was insistent that it was devastating for us. And as it's turned out, he's just said that he's wrong. Well, good on you, Ranty, for at least admitting you were wrong. But you should take this as a lesson for future, in that don't be so insistent that you're right, because, you know, it may turn out that you're wrong again and again. So don't just come out with all guns blazing every time. So here's Brandon Toy's experiment. Now, nothing too much wrong with that, other than I do question the necessity of adding extra sugar after 18 hours. And it does take a long time for the sugar to settle and dissolve completely. So my initial experiment, it took me 2.5 days, and I've just repeated the experiment and it's taken a couple of days. So that's, you know, at least 48 hours. But anyway, if you were able to see through the water, then it wouldn't be too much of a problem. But let's hear some of Brandon's analysis.
Take a look at these. Blue is the top of the globe. It's pretty much in line. Green is the bottom of the globe. Sorry, bottom of the castle. Excuse me, bottom of the castle. So you can see we've got some what appears to be bottom-up obstruction or sinking, whatever.
So he did say what appears to be bottom-up obstruction. And given that you can't see much there, I suppose you could be forgiven for thinking that may be bottom-up obstruction, but when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense at all. But, you know, flat earthers are wanting to prove that bottom-up obstruction can happen without a curve. They're desperate for that. And so he's come to the wrong conclusion, but we'll carry on a little bit here.
Whatever you'd like to call it, I call it bottom-up obstruction of the bottom of this castle. Been obstructed from the bottom up. Bottom of the fish tank is flat, by the way, in case anybody was wondering.
And the mirroring has been eliminated in the right image, right?
The mirroring has been eliminated in the white image. That's correct. Yep, good observation.
Yes, the mirroring has been eliminated because there's still sugar on the bottom of the tank, you dimwit.
If you're ever going to look for a proof, well, a visual aid by shining a laser through it or something like that to show how you would get a density gradient, the trick is to put water in a tank, sprinkle the sugar throughout the tank, let it obviously it'll sink to the bottom, and then it will dissolve slowly over time, and it will start to saturate the bottom of the tank, so creating a much denser gradient on the bottom and a much weaker, if not almost non-existent density at the top. So this will recreate the same sort of density gradients we have in reality.
Well, it's interesting that now Ranty has said that pouring the sugar in on the bottom is creating a density gradient that matches reality, because we can use that. Now, previously I noticed he was saying that he didn't want a density gradient. That's not how he wanted to do it. He wanted a constant density throughout the tank. And of course, one mishap after another, he's now changed his tune to say, this is fantastic. But once he finds out that that's not the bottom being obscured, I'm wondering how he's going to change his mind again after that. So when I did this experiment the first time, this is no sugar in the tank, and you can see how tall that calibration weight is on the left. And then after I've put the sugar, and it's not all quite dissolved yet, the calibration weight. Now, I have to admit that in that picture where the sugar is not all dissolved, I have got pictures where the sugar is all dissolved, but in that picture where the sugar is not dissolved, it is possible to mistake that for an obstruction from the bottom up, because it's not immediately obvious that the calibration weight is severely compressed. There's a huge amount of compression going on in that very bottom of the tank, but you can see that by the way that the triangular set square there is bent on the bottom, and also how the rear of the tank has risen up. Now here's my blink test from my first test, and yes, I've got some sugar still on the bottom there. I probably should have done a blink test with the sugar all dissolved, but I've got another blink test from my next test anyway. So that's the blink test. Now if you look at the blink test, of course, you can see that the bottom of the tank rises at the back, and this would make this calibration weight compressed rather than cut off from the bottom. Now it's not immediately obvious because there's sugar still on the bottom of the tank, but I've repeated this and we'll see the results of that. So this is my first experiment still, and when the sugar is nearly dissolved, you can see now that that calibration weight is severely compressed. It's sitting on the bottom of the tank. That's more obvious when the sugar is gone from the bottom. And once all the sugar was gone, I placed a couple of coins in there, and it becomes more obvious even so. And so look at that, how thin that coin is there up the front, and the next one there, those coins are not that thin. So severe compression and a definite looming. The rear of the fish tank is loomed up. Now I've repeated that experiment again, and I've put a conical funnel in there. This is with just plain water, and I've had to weigh down the funnel so it wouldn't float to the top. So I've strapped a couple of coins to it, and let's watch the blink test on this one. Now because I've used a conical funnel there, it's immediately obvious that that's a compression, and the bottom of the tank looms up. So this is not bottom up obstruction, it is in fact a looming. Now in this test also I've put the set square inside the tank. This ruler is just on the outside of the tank. So before I had the set square on a back wall, it's inside the tank now, and still you can see that it's loomed up and compressed on the bottom. Now here's another interesting thing. Now this is not only is it loomed up, but I've put my curved piece of aluminium in the bottom of the tank, and if you look at the previous picture there, you can see that the back of the tank is level with the top of the curve. So something has been loomed up, conceivably that you would not normally be able to see it there behind the curve, but now you can because it's loomed up. And this is even further illustrated by this video here. I put the camera down below the level of the fish tank and the level of the table there, and you can still see the bottom loomed up over an obstruction. The obstruction is the bottom of the table. So you go below the edge, you can still see the bottom of the fish tank. And this is a clear illustration of looming up over an obstruction, something that the flatties have been telling us has been impossible. Just not possible, they say, but there it is. There's a clear demonstration of that. Now the other thing is here, Travis thinks that light doesn't follow a curved path regardless of the density. And Travis claims that in my video I showed refraction and not light following a curved path. Well, let's have a look at this. Now you can see here that this light is not following a curved path. No, nothing to see here. There is no light curving here. That cannot possibly happen. The Earth must be flat, so this light cannot curve. So what you're seeing here is, you can forget about it. It's just an optical illusion. There's no curving of light there. There's no density change in the tank. Don't worry about what's happening here. The Earth's flat no matter what. Okay? Right. Look at that. Look at that, Travis. You're still going to say that's not curved light?